Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I'm answering all your questions that you've had on Posca pens, so let's jump straight in. First question is, can they do small or fine details? And yes, definitely. This comes down to the size of the pen. Posca pens range from 1M to a 17K, which is the smallest to the biggest pen sizes. Depending on the size of your illustration, you can definitely create small details, especially with the 1M. Can a white Posca pen do highlights? Yes, absolutely. You just need to use them in the right way to make it pop. The same goes for any highlight, whether that be textures, pencils, digital. It just matters on how you use it to make it pop. So yes, white can definitely be used for highlights. Do the pens bleed into each other? The short answer is no, they do not bleed. The long answer, however, is that you can create a bleed effect if you want by blending the colours together with your finger or with some water. What sound do they make? This depends on the surface. I have only tested out 2 surfaces so far, but for example, paper is just a slight noise like any texter or marker makes on paper. When I use them on canvas, however, it was more of a scratchy sound. What does this tip feel like to work with? Are they hard? I have not tested out every size, but I can tell you from the pens that I have used that the nibs do change. A 3M and a 5M have a not soft, but imagine styrofoam if it was solid. It's firm but not hard. A 1M, however, is more like a solid plastic tip and is hard, to the point that if your surface is textured, it can jump over this surface, and sometimes that can create a funny look, like the paint can jump out. If you want to see an example of this jumping over the surface of textured paper, check out my first or second Posca pen videos where I draw a koi fish. What is the opacity like? Does it differ per colour? The opacity changes on the different surfaces. For example, if you take a look at my previous videos, I show that the pens are more opaque on white paper than black paper. And using these two comparisons, white paper likely does not need a second coat, where the black paper does. As for colour, I definitely would say certain colours are more opaque than others, especially yellow, needing more coats to reach opacity. Are multiple coats needed for opacity? As I touched on a moment ago, it does depend on the surface. Many surfaces will only need 1 coat, but some will need 2, perhaps even 3, and it depends on the colour. What surfaces are best? What surfaces can you draw on? You can draw on a great variety of surfaces. In fact, paper is probably the least favourable surface for Posca pens, and yet it is one of the most popular. I say this because you are taking a wet medium and rubbing it over a surface which paper doesn't tend to respond well to, and therefore the paper can rip up. This is why you need to choose the paper carefully, which I plan on making a video on in the future to find the best paper surface for these pens. Posca pens can be used on surfaces such as wood, rock, metal, plastic, canvas, and a lot more. If you have an idea, the best way is to try it out. These pens work on so many surfaces that it is likely to be successful on any that you test it out on. What do they smell like? Well, they don't smell of anything, unless you stick it right up to your nose, and then it has a subtle smell of acrylic paint, which makes sense because that is what is inside these pens, acrylic paint. So I hope you guys picked up some helpful tips, whether you are new or old at Posca pens. Don't forget that I have a whole playlist dedicated to Posca pens now, and I will be constantly updating it over the coming weeks. I'll leave the link in the description and at the end of the video. If this inspired some creativity in you, don't forget to tag me in it so I can see your awesome creations. You can find my socials in the description. an awesome day, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.